everyone, Will Terrell here. Today I've got 5 tips for you on how to improve your line drawing. These are all tips that helped me tremendously with improving my line work. Hopefully it'll do the same for you. So let's get started. It's really important to sketch lightly when you're doing your initial lay-in for a drawing. The reason for this is if you go too dark, it's either going to smudge the page, or even after you add ink line work, you're not going to be able to erase the line drawing underneath it. This is something I find often beginning artists do, is they either draw really, really dark or really, really timidly. I'll even go even lighter than this usually when I'm doing my initial lay-in, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going a little bit darker than normal so it shows up on the camera. If you do end up going too dark with your initial lay-in, it's okay. Just go ahead and take a kneaded eraser and knock back the tone a little bit. I'll even do that when I'm doing like a pencil sketch. I'll do the initial lay-in, sketch it out, make it really messy, but keep it light, and I'll use my kneaded eraser to knock it back almost to where you can barely see it on the page, and then I'll redraw the entire thing a little bit darker, and I'll keep doing that until I find the form perfectly before I do the final inked version. My next tip is to become more confident with your line drawing. That's something that's going to take years and years of practice to do. But you'll notice how I'm sketching out the lines like this. I notice this is something that most beginning artists do. Their lines will be timid, they'll be kind of jaggedy, because they're trying to sketch it through as they go. But what you want is a bold, smooth line like this. And that's, like I said, is something you're going to have to practice with over and over. And you'll notice I'm kind of whipping the line as it comes out of the arc. And I'll also follow over the line that I just drew, and that builds up the line so it all looks like it belongs together. Going back to our example, I'm going to use this Sharpie pen, which has a sort of a narrow line width to it. And it's sort of like the micron pigment I see a lot of beginning artists do and manga artists. And it's kind of a stiff line. So this is what I normally see in line work, is really jaggedy lines like this, and you don't want that. It's not really a natural line that you see in nature. I mean, it can be used as a texture, like it looks like a fabric or something, but not a skin tone. Most skin is smooth, and so you want the line that represents it to be smooth also. Same thing with the hair. You want that line to be somewhat smooth too. The only time you use a jagged texture is on something like a jagged canvas or t-shirt, or something that's been ripped. That's when a texture like that will come in handy. One reason most artists have trouble with doing confident lines is because they're drawing against their own strengths. You need to draw towards yourself to have control over your line work. You can see when I draw in the opposite direction, my lines kind of splay and they're not very controlled, and you can see how they separate here. And like with every rule, this isn't 100% of the time. This is just my rule of thumb. Whenever I'm having trouble with line work, I try and go back to drawing towards myself. So practice filling up pages with doing parallel lines. I'm learning to talk. So in order to follow rule number 3, you'll need to turn the page in order to get your most confident line. Every artist has basically one good line stroke, and you need to turn the page in order to maximize the use of that line stroke. So I'm constantly turning the page in order to draw towards myself so I can get that confident line. The other benefit to it is you can turn the page upside down and realize that your face looks jacked up. For instance, one of your eyes could be considerably lower than the other, and it looks really weird from this angle. And turning the page upside down will help you realize how bad it looks, and hopefully let you do something about it. Come on, turn the page upside down so you can see how bad it looks. So anyways, line work. Be confident, draw towards yourself, and spin the page. These are all things that are easy to forget, and then you realize, wow, these tips can really help me make my drawings look a lot better. I'm so glad that I listened to these tips. So at this point, I finally turned the page upside down, and I realized how weird that one eye looks like it's way higher up than the other one. And so I try and fudge the eyelid a little bit and the nose bridge, and yeah. But what are you gonna do? I think part of the problem, I was spending more time looking at the camera than actually at the drawing, so everything's a little bit iffy, sketchy, if you will, on this drawing. This is why I don't do tutorial videos very often. I get too self-conscious about the whole thing. Start making jokes about my drawings. Anyways, so there you go. That's how you spin the page. And now you know. Line variation is my favorite part about inking. I just love making lines go from thick to thin. And you can do that with a pen like this Sharpie pen or with a Micron Pigma pen, but it's a lot more work. You have to go back over the line several times and build it up, make it go from thick to thin in certain parts, and it can be kind of a headache. You can see how my line keeps splaying at the end of the arc each time I do it. So I have to go back over it and fix it and fix it and fix it. I much prefer using an actual brush pen in order to get the line variation. So sometimes I'll do the initial lay-in with a thin pen like the Sharpie or a Micron Pigma, but I almost always go back over it with a brush pen. Like this is a Japanese import Zebra brush pen, but you can find other types of brush pens, and I like it because it goes from thick to thin with hardly any work to it. That's juicy line variation right there. I love how it looks. And you can even do the same thing where you build up. You go over the same line and extend it, or you can make it a thicker thick to thin by just going over it and building up the thick to thin on it. Man, I'm just no good at this talk thing today. So going back to the parallel lines that I was showing you how to do on drawing towards you, you can do the same thing with a brush pen, and you get this nice pattern with it. And this is the beginnings of cross hatching. And you can see how varying the pressure here, where I get thicker in the middle of the stroke versus thicker at the beginning of the stroke, makes it a different type of pattern. And then overlaying these parallel stroke patterns is what makes cross hatching look the way it does. And how you get that unique pattern to it, and just varying it up where you go at a different angle with each parallel stroke pattern, and varying your pressure and so on until you get this pattern going. Yeah, I really like the way that cross hatching looks. It's pretty much my favorite thing to do. Sometimes I'll just fill up whole pages of just cross hatching. Wait, cross hatching. I think I need a nap. Alright, back to our example. So you can take the line drawing that we did before and add a little bit of line variation to it just by building up that line again and following the form of the face. And this is something that you'll have to experiment with for years and years and years. But basically, adding line variation, like on the cheek here, makes it look like that the thick part of her cheek is where it's casting a shadow underneath it, and the thin part is where the light meets the skin. And knowing where to do that is just something you're going to have to practice with years and years and years. But then going back to the brush pen, you can do these really nice thick to thin strokes without having to build it up, without all the headaches. It's just like instantaneous. You get nice, thick, juicy lines and really thin lines, and yeah, I like it. So that's pretty much it on my tips for this video. I will try and do more of these, and hopefully I can take them more seriously down the road. I hope this was somewhat useful to you. One other thing to keep in mind, when I first started learning how to ink, I really was terrible at it, and I actually had a a comic book publisher telling me they wanted me to draw a book for them, but as long as I never touched an ink pen ever again. So they didn't actually say it in those words. It was not quite that harsh, but it was pretty harsh. So in order to remedy that, I decided I was going to ruin every sketchbook I ever had. And so I went back through, it was probably 10 or 15 sketchbooks. They were all just pencil sketches, and I decided to ink every single one of those drawings. For the first, 5 or 6 sketchbooks, they were pretty bad. It was actually ruining drawings. But by the time I got past that point, the ink drawings were actually looking better than the pencil drawings were. And I started becoming more confident with my work. So with anything, it just takes time and practice and just being patient with yourself and trying to have fun with it. I mean, that's what this is all about, is not taking it too seriously, just having fun. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and thank you for subscribing to the channel and liking the videos and sharing it with your friends. Keep smiling.